had so many questions of people asking me, how do you get your samples to sound the way they do? How do you get them onto the Octatrack? Is there something that you do? Yeah, well, hybrid live performance prepping. That's going to be today's video. You ready for it? Let's go and do it right now. What's up, I'm Metal Kitchen, and thank you for checking out yet another video. Now, if this is your first time here, don't hesitate to click subscribe and hit that notification bell. Whenever I upload a new video, you'll be kept in the loop and you'll not miss out on anything. Now, do stick around till the end of this video. I will tell you all about our community, about like-minded people, about the dance carousel. There's so much to tell. So I said it many a time, I am a hybrid producer. Now, what does that mean exactly? A lot of people are straight edge, which means they only temper with the dollar stuff, the modular stuff. They just do not want to sit behind a computer and work it that way. I understand. Now, but in my mind, I think when you are trying to perform, and if you do this for a living, you want to at least try and fit the standard that is out there. Now, for sake of argument, let's say that is beatport and the way the beatport tracks sound. There's a certain way I promoted things about people that actually play that kind of sound. Now, since every DJ is following that specific way of how the music sounds, if you sound different, it doesn't even matter how great your music is, you're probably not going to get picked out. So I think it helps to approach your live set as a DJ would. So not DJ, but approach it as a DJ would. So in terms of the song structure, the transition into different tracks or even genres, but also the way the samples sound. Now, what I will do is I will go sit behind my computer and I will film the screen, because I will work my samples in there and take you through the process of how I get to certain choices that I make in order to make the samples sound the way they do. Now, my DAW of choice is Studio One. This is where I prepare all my samples. I can do it with other DAWs as well, but the thing is, I love this old school way of working, so I will treat this as a tape machine almost. Now, I've set it up with a few shortcuts. This is pretty much the browser on the side here, where I use a lot of plugins. I've got my favorites sitting right here. So what I'm using is a FEP filter. I've got FEP filter Saturn, the Valhalla rooms. I've got a few things that I do in order to help the Octatrack along. Now, we'll start with a kick. This is a sample that I've found somewhere. It can come out of a pack. It can come out of maybe Splice or Loop Cloud or whatever. I'll look for something that instantly appeals to me and gives me inspiration, and then I will start. Now listen to this. This plays this. Vomp, 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 vomp. Listen to that. You can hear that it's distorting at certain points. Now, I don't want that to go into the Octatrack. So what I've done is I've chopped this up. This is just an example. So if we're going to go to the beginning of the page, now all of a sudden you see the rest of the samples. Now let's focus on this kick first. This kick is here. Let me just give it a different color, maybe orange, and I'll just zoom in and I'll go to the first segment of the page, do this, and I will select everything. I say P, and then I'll get a cycle. The cycle goes over 8 bars. When I'm going into the Octatrack, it's going to be 4 bars, meaning this goes up to 5. Certain samples run longer. I take that into consideration, but for this, I will even chop this up in the Octatrack. So either I'll just play this sample by itself, meaning, and then I'll stop it. But let's look at what I've done with the sample. Now, clearly you can see that there are certain parts here where I've altered the volume so that it doesn't distort. right? So you will hear this. You hear it? And almost sounds like it's tuned down. Two. Listen to this. It dips. This one and this one. So I know now that the kick is constantly sitting. Listening to what I had before, the one sitting over on this side. If I loop it up. Now I don't want to fly out of the gate with my distortions already sounding like that. So obviously that's not how I want it. Now that I've got my kicks sorted, this is what I will usually then render out. What I do, which you can't see right now, is that on my Finder, I have over on oh no, that's not gonna work. On the Finder, I have the Octatrack folder pop up as soon as I connect the Octatrack to the computer. That means that I will make a folder in which I render those samples, and then I'll just whiz them over to the Octa, and then it will work there. Now, on top of this track, what else do I need? Now, I've got my Octatrack in studio mode, and I also got it in the master mode, which means that I'm only using a max of 7 tracks. Of course, track 8 on the Octatrack obviously is going to be the master track. So what I need is a loop hat. So I'm trying to look for a hat and see what it does. Just a simple hat that I'm liking. There's a bit of stuff going on in the background, but let's look at what I've done with this loop. Now, this is the Fab Filter Saturn. I love this because I use it as an EQ. As a hybrid between an EQ and a saturator. Now, if I stick a loop in coming out of the back just straight into the Octatrack, it's going to sound like this. And these are bands. I can just add more bands. As you can see, the plus sign. See, got one here. Let's take that one out. Just take it out, or just go like boop. So you make different bands which you can distort. There's different distortion elements that you can use. There's tape emulations, amp emulations, tube emulations. I decided to go for warm tape, so it doesn't really overdrive everything. And if I want to add more highs, I'm not going to go for the top highs here. I'll just probably make a band right here. That band crossing over at 8K, 8 kilohertz, which is what you can see in the plugin. You see it as soon as I hover over this line, and then listen to this. So now I can determine how does anything sound. Usually I'll play a beatport track or whatever, and then I'll just play this loop while the beatport track is playing, and then I know in a ballpark, okay, this is way too much high frequency content, but this is way too low. So then I get a ballpark. Now, how does this relate to maybe a regular plugin? If I turn the Saturn off, and you see all the information is built up here. But if I'm going to trying to add stuff here, it only amplifies the high frequencies. And maybe I would like to amplify something here as well. You hear how it barely affects anything? I mean, obviously there's stuff happening, but it's not the same as to say distorting a band. If you want to get a little bit closer into it, listen to this. Now you need to be careful with this, right? You need to know what you're doing. So be careful. Don't overdo it, because if you keep adding stuff, it sounds absolutely nice, but it's going to also sound way too bright. Now this sounds pretty cool. Let's see how it relates to the kick. Now I don't have to mix stuff or level stuff out here, because that's stuff that we're going to do once we get the samples into the Octatrack, right? So the thing to focus on here is the hypnotic backdrop on this loop. That's what I'm trying to focus on. So there's a few things in this loop. There's the hi-hat, And there's this. See if we can find it maybe. That one. See? So that's probably around, what is it? Yeah, between 1K and 2K. So that thing. A little bit high. I'm not trying to exaggerate it. There's a clap here as well. So if you want to get to this sound, you're also going to make your clap louder. But fiddle about with this thing and you'll find that, oh, wait a minute. There's a lot of stuff that's actually happening. I like it. Cool. Now, that's one loop done. I'm not focusing on the levels, as I said. Next up, what do I got? What have I got? That's the kick. Now, this is very interesting. Now, I love the percussive elements, but I'm not sure if I'm going to play it with this loop that it's going to stand out. So what I'm going to do is I'd like to hear that a little bit more. So first of all, one trick that I use that I think helps your live set is to make your sounds percussive. Now there's one plugin that I use that's called the Transient Shaper by Shock. This is absolutely a Swiss Army knife when it comes to that stuff. Let's first normalize the sample. See if we can make it a little bit louder. It's already normalized, so that's not too loud. So first, the Transient Shaper. I'm going to exaggerate the volume so you'll hear it. Now, as you can hear, there's reverb in the background, right? Focus on the reverb. And when this is on the kick, it's gluing the kick together because of the noise in between. Now, you know I'm renowned for saying groove is not the notes being played. Groove is the space in between the notes, and that's exactly what I'm going to alter right now. So I want to hear a little bit more of this. So listen to this, Transient Shaper. I use this moderately, but it does something with the sound. Bye-bye reverb, or room, or whatever. Now, if I'm going to add a Saturn to it, now I can get to these sounds better, right? So I'm going to look for the bands, get a few going here, just random, and because you can just like nudge them. Let's start with where I think the most energy is, which, looking at things, is here. Okay. Now, at a certain point, this crosses over into distortion as well. So here you hear so more the letter T in the attack, but that starts to go into the letter V. It starts to sound angry. Now, if that's the sound you're looking for, no problem. Now, on its own, I've got a trained ear, so I know what I'm looking for. But if you don't know how this percussion is going to relate to the other loop, play the loop and just like go for it. So the ticks are gone. And listen to this. A little bit more on the low end, I think I can have. The first one is a bit loud. You hear it? It jumps out here. One, two. Yeah. So you'll hear the first one. And compression usually takes care of that. So I will compress the sound. Let's turn down this. Let's turn down this. Otherwise, you won't hear me. Cool. How does this relate to the kick? Let's check it out. Cool. Now, I think that's two top loops done, not anything else, right? I think that this is done. So that means track 1 of the octave track, kick. Track 2 of the octave track, one loop. Track 3 of the octave track, another loop, right? Now it's time to just like fiddle about with what do I want to do music-wise. Now, I've got this going on. That's a sample that I think is absolutely awesome, and it plays this. As you can see, these samples are 4 bars long. This says 5, meaning 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is bar 4, going back to 1. This, however, as well as this. You can see, no, not this one. I'll give this another color as well. If there's one color I hate, it's yellow. So yellow, go away. Green also, but okay. So you see that the yellow one is 8 bars long. So that means that you have to tell the Octatrack to play the tracks separately from each other, because you can tell the Octatrack to do different things with different tracks. And this one has to play for 8 bars. On the Octatrack it means this track will play half the tempo of this, because obviously 2 of those makes up one of this, right? Listen to the sample. One, two, three, back. If you're losing track, let me play the kick for you when it turns around, right? 1, 2, 3, go. Now again, if you want to make it a little bit more groovy and bouncy, I'll take out the reverb on this sample as well. With the transient shaper, go in. I think I've got my reverb here. You can hear that there's a little bit of envelope thing going on those bam, 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 bam notes. It's noticeable, but is it really, really necessary? No. So I'm going to take away this plugin. Listen to my reverb, the Valhalla shimmer. Open up the mix completely because it is on a send. If I was going to insert it directly on the channel, then I will alter this stuff. Now it's just an effect, right? And I might benefit of other tracks also going through this reverb later if I'm going to add this insert to other tracks, if that's what I wanted. Okay, cool. Now, this works, right? Then I'm also going to look at a bass line. Now, this is very important. There's a lot of stuff going on here. This is also one of the lifesavers. For a live set, build-up of low frequency content is adamant. It happens, and it happens pretty fast. Now, this is a multi-band sidechain by Calworth Audio, right? They've done it together with it's coming out of the Vengeance Producer Suite. Now, it's not the cheapest plugin there is, but this, let me just copy it, because I am going to show you what I'm going to do with it, right? But I don't want to alter my own stuff. So this is the dummy one. Listen, I can obviously this is going to conflict with the kick. And what I want is I want the kicks to come through. So I'm going to go in and fiddle about with see, I can shape the entire size of the gap that the sidechain needs to do. Not only that, it is a multi-band sidechain. So I've got 2 bands. This is the higher band, this is the lower band. There's also a bit of an EQ here, which is nice. As you can see, I'm not using it much, but sometimes I will if the sample is dull or muffled. Cool. Let's go back to the sidechain. I'm exaggerating it so that you hear what's happening. And then with because this sidechain as an accent so that it will stand out. Once I get to the octave track, I'll probably turn the kick up louder, and then we'll just add stuff to it and see how that works. Now, this is how I set up songs on the octave track, right? There's much more that I can do, but you have to just tell me if you want to see more of this kind of vibe, what I'm doing on the computer, if you want to see that. Now I'm going to go over to the octave track and we're going to stick that on there, and let's see if we can make it work. Ready? As you hear, I've got this thing coming out of a stereo output. So this stereo fader, I will link it to its own thing. So I will go to the audio page and I will turn down the volume, not the pitch, on the volume here. And now it is coming out of the Q output, which is sitting over here. So this output here is going into the stereo 2. The stereo channel, if you only put the cable into the left side, it will become mono. This is bridged over left and right. And then if you was to add an extra cable, it'll become stereo. It doesn't need to be stereo because I want my kick to just come out of the, I just want it to be mono. I've explained it in last week's video how most club sound systems are mono anyway. But let's listen to everything that we have and see how the relation is. This that the tick 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 loop, because now you hear that, you hear it's pretty there, yeah, it's pretty out there. Cool. We've got that sound. Still track 4. Let's see. Yeah. Cool. And track 5. So this whole techno track consists of only 5 tracks. 3 drum tracks and 2 music tracks. Nothing on 6, nothing on 7. So I've got some stuff to expand if I want to, right? But what I've done is, instead of adding more samples here, I want to do it live. I want to show that I can do something live as well. So then I've got on here, this is the first of the MIDI tracks. Go to the MIDI page, track 1. See? If I'm engaging it, it turns red and yellow, meaning I'm turning it on and off. And then if I'm going into chromatic mode, all of a sudden there's a sound here. And this is the sound that I'm going to play something with, or that I've already played something with. But now you see how the samples created on the computer are going to just like gel with what I've got right here sound. Let's build it up. I'm going to get out of MIDI mode, knowing that this thing is already there. I'm going to just start with the drums that I have. Now, I have done something on the crossfader that you see me do all the time. I've got a few scenes. C9 is opening up with reverb, cutoff reverb. I think 10 is going to be just cutoff. Yeah, you hear the kick here now. So it takes out low end, which is cool because on a big sound system, this works, right? Now, listen to how these loops are gelling together, right? So you got this one. And as you can hear, I have compressed the first one. The first one was a bit loud just now, and now it's thick, so it doesn't really, you know, it doesn't really exceed any limits. And then the other one is, so that's all good, right? Together. And if I'm going to go in, say, let's go in for this one, I'll double click, I'll say, I'll enter it, look what's happening. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. This goes over 2 bars, right? You can clearly see it moving here with the light. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if that's also the case with this one. 1, this is even faster. 1, 2, 3, and bam. But then this sound, like I told you, we're going to go to there. 2, 2, 3. See? Now it's double tempo, as I said. Otherwise, it's not going to play the whole sample. It's not like you say, like, within the DAW, I'll spread my locators, and that's what it's going to do. The Octatrack initially plays 4 times 4, so 64 steps. If you want it to be 128 steps, you have to tell the Octatrack, okay, this track here needs to play half tempo. Now, how you do that is pretty simple. You go to your regular page. Let's go to the kick drum here. I'm going to go in and say function and pattern. And then you get into the pattern settings. Now you see here, it's either normal or per track. That's the scale mode. So the scale mode determines how all these tracks are going to behave as opposed to one another. Which means that my kick drum here, so we're going to go out here, listen to the kick, bam, 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 double click it, see it, boom, 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, bam, 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 bam. So it's playing the loop. I can even go in and say I will slice it, because that's what I've done on a different track. I'll slice the loop, and then I will just look at all the different samples, just zooming in. You're gonna look and you're gonna see what does what. So you can see that there's a smaller sample sitting before there. Bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum. Let's get out of there. So easy peasy, right? So you can do that, but looking at this longer sample here then, looking at that, double click it. Here. And what I want to show you is, let's get out of here. Now, if you were to look at the track trigs, right? If I was to do function and the scale, now all of a sudden you see this 64 by 64 scale. That's what the kick drum is doing. But here you see that there's a division, 1 divided by 2 on track 4, which means that both of them, you can see that the trigs, if it's running. If I'm going to track 1, look at how fast this goes. 2, boom, bam, 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 bam. And on track 4 it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Nifty thing with the Octatrack. Now let's listen to the sounds, right? How do they work? I told you I was going to turn up the kick a little bit. So the kick is coming out of its own output. Let's turn this down, go to the kick and say, you know, I'm gonna play it out of here. So it's pretty loud at the moment, but that's because the whole track is loud, right? Now, I go to the amp page, I turn it down a little bit. It's all nice, but I still think that the loops are taking over. So I'm going to go back to where I was with the volume, turn this off. And now I've got my own channel to worry about, so I can do whatever I want. See, it's easier to mix it that way. So, kick. Cool. We've got it going on. Does it sound okay? I think it sounds, yeah, pretty cool. So, the rule of thumb here is that I want to hear everything in the top loops, but the kick needs to be, you know, 2 or 3 things out of the kick I need to hear, like boom, boom, boom. So the attack, which is the letter D here, do, 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 and that woo, woo, woo. I call that the belly of the kick, or the sustained sound of that kick. I definitely need to hear that. If it starts to go away, like so, the more I turn up this is, it's either the kick is too soft or the other sounds are too high, but as for sake of example, this is what will happen. So I'm trying to just like look for a middle ground here. Yeah, I'm liking that. Okay, this should be okay. Now, on a desk like this, it's the EPM 8 by Soundcloud. I wouldn't mind this light to be blinking a little bit for the kick, so I'm going to turn it up. Bump, 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 bump. Means that I'm going to get a little bit of that analog saturation going. This is the Rotterdam kick. And since it's not 1994, let's not do it, but you know what I mean? That's how we used to wreck. That's how Gabba was born, by the way. That's exactly how we did it. Now, we don't have to do it that way, but we want a little bit of that saturation. So this is pretty clean and nice and coloring within the lines. And here you start to saturate a little bit. That's what you want. A big sound system loves that. Then loop is here. There's a lot of high frequency content, so if you have trouble trying to figure it out, just turn one loop off. Probably go for this to mix it and listen to, because one of the loops needs to be a little bit more dominant than the other one. Now, going to track 2, which is track 2 here. Rule of thumb, I always keep everything in the same spot. Okay, this is pretty much maxed out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click. I don't think that I've normalized the loop. Did I normalize it? No, I did not. So I will go to the edit page. I'll go to say, select all. I'm going to hit it again. And then I'll say normalize. Now it's going to be as loud as hell. Here you go. Cool. That gives me a little bit more headroom out of there. So I'm turning it down here, but it means that now I can go either way, right? Because I was just to the max. Now I'm going to see how this relates to that other loop here. Pretty loud. I'm going to turn this other loop down because it's got more high frequency content in there, so it doesn't need to be that loud. That frequency, you will always hear it, right? So we'll go to track 3. Turn it down a little bit. And this is how you determine if your track is going to be either more techno, which I think is this, and then this down, more on that higher, more that driving, or you wanted to have make it a little bit more percussive, then you turn up the groove and go for, see, I'll tend to go for a middle ground. Track 2, I'll turn it up a little bit but not too loud, and track 3 is going to, cool. Now that we have that, I'll turn the master down. I'm not going to tamper with the kick anymore because this is my, this is cool as it is. Now first I'm going to go to track 5, because track 5 is my bass line. Now that I hear that the bass line is sitting where it sits and it does a lot of stuff for the low end, I'll go to track 5. Let's see, I can turn this up probably a little bit. Let's turn those loops off and focus on this. Yeah, this works. Now you see why the sidechain was embedded, because now I can hear the kick play, bam, 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 bam. Every transient, every attack transient is there, and that's what you want, So, turning it off. Now you hear the sidechain. This is the best way to check your sidechans. If you turn the kick on and it doesn't sound like anything sidechaining, that means that you sidechain your bass line absolutely awesomely, and that's how you should do it. If you hear it, it means that the hole that's being punched inside the bass line has been too predominantly there, and that's not the case, unless you want to do it as an effect. Thinking of the French house back in the days, they used to overdo the sidechain to the point where all the old Daft Punk records and stuff were like that. But now I just want my layers to sit where they sit. I want the sidechain to do what it does, and I do that ahead of time. Yeah, now okay, so putting the loops back in. I think the loops are a little bit on the loud side, but instead of turning them down, I'm going to turn my bass line up a little bit because I think I'm cool where I am. Now let's listen to that top sound. Now you can say, why did you not sidechain that top layer sound? Well, for one, there was no frequency content that was interfering with the kick, and I thought it was so gritty. I did a lot with Saturn, so it sounds saturated, so why would I really sidechain this as well, And I don't want to give away that I'm sidechaining stuff, because now you don't hear that the bass line is sidechained. You don't hear it, right? And that's exactly what you want. If you didn't know this sample, you would never guess that it's sidechained, the bass line on 5. Cool, loops there. Now it's time to add another machine into the mix, because this is just cool, works, and I can do that, but you would like to add something else, right? So now first, the sound that I have is this. Cool. So now we've got our Typhon also in the mix. Let's see how this is going to relate when it plays together with that lead sound, right? Kick out, 1, 2, 3, go. Liking it. Okay, so I did a jam with this track last week on the video, so if you want to see a longer version of this track, then that's where you can check it out. But obviously, liking that. Now, I love the effects on the Typhon, as I said, but I love my Strymon Black Sky more. So if I was to look at liking that, man. So you can build a little bit more tension with it. Now, let's not overdo it, you know. Loops in. There we go. Yeah, just like that. I love the fact that I can just be versatile here and do my stuff here. So why do I set myself up to do something like this? Like, the thing, what I like is I want certain things to be predictable when I'm working them, right? So one of those things needs to be the octatrack that I can rely on. I need to rely on this always working. So I know that the kick's going to be on one bum. I've also got a bassline sample that is twofold. Sometimes I do it with my computer, with my synthesizers and program it, because this is a bit of a sample and hold kind of vibe. As you can hear, you hear that the sound modulates. So there's a in the bottom end, and then there's this modulated LFO kind of bit on the top end. So this makes it interesting over a longer period listening to this, especially if you play it together with a lead sound like this that plays a parameter. You know, that's absolutely amazing. And then the drums, so you don't really need a lot. I guess that's how I do it, right? This is the way I look at samples and the way they need to sound and the way I transfer them into the octatrack. So thank you for being here. Thanks ever so much. Yeah. Let's talk about patreon.com/analogkitchen. This is a support platform where you guys can support me if you like what you see, you love what you hear, and it helps me to create more content for you, make better content, and make sure that this does what it does and it works the way it works. So obviously, yeah, it's awesome. Now, Patreon is a bit flat if you look at the page. It's cool, but the magic happens in Discord. The cool people over at Discord have thought, you know what? The cool people over at Patreon have thought, let's make bridges into more interactive platforms. Now, Discord is one of those platforms. You can send your music there, you can upload your videos, you can video stream if you want to. Our community is very helpful. They talk to each other, they want to just be involved with each other's work, so it's absolutely awesome to be a part of that. Now, you can follow this by patreon.com/analogkitchen. Now, if you made it this far into the video, you, sir or ma'am, are an absolute superstar. Thank you for watching. Yeah, keep watching this space. I'm Analog Kitchen. Next week, there's going to be another video. So, in the meantime, stay cool, and I'm out. Peace.